I had a mentor say to me once, the opposite of depression is expression. And that's always stayed with me. The desire was so deep that it would not leave me alone. This desire to play with words and share them with the world.
Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome back, dear listener. Today's episode is a special one. I'm talking with a recent private coaching client, Mer Monson, whose first book of poems, For the Wounded, has just been published. Getting to witness this moment with her feels incredibly meaningful because when Mer and I first started working together, what appeared on the surface was a desire to write more regularly. But pretty quickly, it became clear that the writing was already there. What was really asking for attention was the tender and terrifying threshold between creating something and letting it be seen. In this conversation, Mer shares the path that led her to poetry, from childhood journaling to writing through cancer, grief, spiritual upheaval, chronic pain, and the many losses that shaped this collection. We talk about the fear of sharing honest work, the way that fear can disguise itself so well that you don't even know it's there, and the deep longing underneath that still wants to express itself anyway. This is a conversation about poetry, but also about visibility, self-trust, embodiment, creativity, and what it means to let yourself be witnessed without abandoning yourself in the process. Mer speaks so beautifully here about going at the pace that your body needs, letting yourself be held, and discovering that expression itself can be a form of healing. If you've ever felt the pull to share something real and the terror that can rise up alongside it, I think this conversation will meet you there. Mer, thank you so much for being here. I have been looking forward to this opportunity to chat with you for a long time, and it's such a special moment that it's here. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Anna. Total treat to be here.
Mm. So to start us off for the listeners, um, could you share a little bit about you, and just to start you off, you've inhabited and inhabit many roles in life: writer, mother, coach, counselor. What would you like to share about you at this moment and what feels most relevant to you at this point in your path?
Yeah, so I think what I would like to say about that is that what's hit me in my early 50s about who I am, and what I want to be up to is that I have spent at least 3 decades, more like 3.5, I guess, um, just trying to have a better human experience, which is normal and human and good, and I did that through religion, through psychology, through coaching, through spiritual seeking, through energy healing, like, all these different ways. And it was an amazing journey. But what I feel called to in my early 50s is just being fully human, just letting myself express what it's like when I live in and ride on the wave of everything belongs. And there isn't something to get over or bypass or downplay or conquer, just when I just let it all be. So that's what I feel called to do at the moment. Like, I have no desire to be in a helping role other than to just express what being alive feels like to me. And maybe that will be helpful. That's my hope, but that's not why I'm doing it, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and thank you just for putting words to that, because I actually felt expanded by what you just put words to, and I imagine that there will be listeners who feel expanded by it, and I'm glad that you named the age in life that you're at, and that the journey that you've been on up until this point has all been good and worthwhile and makes sense. Because I do think that while each of our paths is unique, um, there does seem to be some commonness to this experience of reaching a certain stage of midlife and h experiencing some type of a perspective shift on all of the seeking that we've been up to.
Yeah, there sure does.
Yeah.
I can't take really any credit for that.
But you can and do express it in your own particular way, which then,
Sure. Okay. I can
for me,
say
it
yes to it,
expands
right?
expands whatever it is that I'm experiencing as I'm in, 1 year from 50 and definitely
Yep.
experiencing shifts in perspective. Yeah,
Mm, all good.
yeah. Um, you have just published a book of poems, and I'm gonna hold it up because I have actually 2 copies here, called For the Wounded, and this is something I'd love to talk about and explore with you, starting off by the journey that got you here. And so in as much or little detail as you'd like to share, as far back as you'd like to go or as recently as you'd like to start, what's been the path in your life that's led you to writing, and specifically to writing the poems that are contained in this book?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a yummy question for me. Yeah, my mom started me on journals really young. I think I have one from when I was 3 that's mostly crayon drawing. Don't know what they are. Uh, so I've kept journals, and as I grew, the journal became a place where when the suffering hit a certain point, when the angst hit a certain point, that's where I'd go. So a lot of my early journals are very, very dark and heavy, but it was a balm to me, to be able to do that. And then I remember writing love poems to my first boyfriend. Like, that was
Yeah.
played along the way, who incidentally many years later ended up as my husband, so that's kind of
Oh
fun.
my goodness! Oh, I didn't know that.
Uh, and then when 10 years ago, I went through cancer, and when I started the cancer experience, I wanted some way to let people know what was happening and what I was doing, but I needed a very wide, deep space of solitude and privacy. So I just started a blog so that I could express when I wanted to and what I wanted to, and people could check in when they wanted to know without having to constantly engage with people. And I just fell in love. It gave me this space between me and what was happening. and a space to explore what it meant and how it felt. And it was just, that's when the writer in me really came alive. And then after that experience died down, maybe 2 or 3 years later, I just started writing classes. It just called to me. So I've been in writing classes for 6, 7 years now. And that space of my writing cohorts and my writing mentor and teacher just has become this space where I get to be unedited.
Yeah.
So of my life, as I'm sure every human can relate to, has been feeling edited, feeling stifled, suffocated in some way. And so it just became a space where I could just tell it like it was and play the game of how honest can I get?
Oh,
What's even this thing I just wrote? Like, I love that game. I love it. It's terrifying and it's thrilling and it's just amazing. And then a few years ago, I was in the middle of just a lot of losses. Both of my parents died about 8 weeks apart, and we moved from a home that we'd been in for 10 years and a town I'd lived in for over 20. Uh, my health, which was already pretty fragile, took a nosedive. I hit a level of burnout I've never experienced before. And my relationship with the faith that I grew up in was at a busting point. Something had to shift there, which kind of brought in some grief and some loss as well. So I just felt like I was in a river of loss. And my writing mentor planted Rilke's elegies in front of me to read and study and write from, really, from the energy and the feeling of those. So that's where these poems were born. But his poems gave me permission to just let myself go into the dark. I mean, all that and psychology and healing and wellness
yeah.
world was very strong in me. Like, you got to be positive. You got to go to the light. You got to figure it out. You got to, they just dropped me into a space where I just started to rest in the truth that getting to the light doesn't mean running away from the dark,
Hmm.
an abandonment of what hurts and what's unresolved. And so I just felt this freedom to write what being human has felt like to me. And, to be honest, it's pretty rough being human. At least that's been my experience. And I think it is for a lot of humans. And I just felt free to just say it, to just say it like it is. And what was cool in that honest expression and unedited expression was that what I fell into was like our belovedness, my own, like, I'm beloved, even though I'm blind and wounded and unresolved and I play small and there's things I loathe about myself. Like, I just saw it in the let myself go all the way there. It was like, oh, my love. Like, I just felt so tender towards myself and towards being human, and that it's still beautiful even though it's not quote unquote perfect. It's gloriously beautiful. So that's what these poems are about in my mind and heart.
Thank you so much for, again, for putting words to all of that. And it's so interesting to me how like human experiences can reflect and echo and amplify and hold each other's human experiences. You said that when your writing mentor put Rilke's poetry in front of you, that his poems gave you permission to go into the dark. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting because um, I resonate so much with that experience when I read your poems for the first time, and I wrote this to you, that I experienced it as like your poems felt to me like a glass bottom boat that was holding me and allowing me to descend into the depths and look at them while being held by the
Mm.
words, so I could be with it without feeling like I was completely lost.
Yeah, that's it. You said it better than me.
I
That's
mean,
gorgeous.
I'm
Yeah,
riffing
that's
off
it.
of what I'm hearing.
That's it. Like, and like it's okay to look directly at it. It's okay to look directly at what is most terrifying. And somehow when you're doing that, you will still find grace
Yeah.
in your feet.
Is there is there a particular reader that this book is written for, or something in particular that you want readers or hope readers will take from it, or something specific that you're guiding readers to explore, or is it more open-ended than that?
I don't think that thought ever crossed my mind in the creation of it, of what do I want people to get. But if I sit in that question, poetry is unique to me in the sense that you cannot really create it or ingest it unless you are in a slow place. Like there's poetry demands a lot of presence and stillness.
Yeah.
Like if you try to read a poem in a hurry,
Yeah, it's funny actually.
not nothing good really is gonna come of that, other than, oh, that's nice, or I don't get it, or but I think more than anything, like whether you understand everything in the poem or not, that doesn't really matter to me. It's a feeling that I'm interested in offering
Yeah.
in poems. It's a feeling of every single part of you and what you've experienced and what you are experiencing belongs and is beloved. Like it's all okay. And it's yeah, there's just that's the phrase that just keeps coming to me. It's just everything belongs. Everything belongs. Everything is beloved in you and in your life.
You really gave me a new way of understanding for myself what poetry is when you said if you try to read a poem in a hurry, because like that half sentence isn't telling you in a narrative or cognitive way what poetry is or isn't. But like as soon as I heard you say that if you try to read a poem in a hurry, like I felt the absurdity of it, which also showed me
Yeah.
which like brought light for me to like is what is poetry. And in, as you're saying, like, or what I'm getting from what you're saying is that it's experiential.
Yes, yes. Poetry is meant to be experienced from the neck down.
It's a
Yeah.
lot more, I think, I don't know, to me, the experience of poetry is a lot more akin to the experience of a painting than the experience of an essay or even a novel.
Yes, yes. And actually, that's why I invited one of my favorite artists to include some of her paintings in this book because the when I look at her paintings, Darcy Lee Saxton is her name. When I look at them, I feel the place where these poems came from. So
Yeah.
you're exactly right. It is more like a painting. And, and what's beautiful is Darcy said to me, like, she had names for these paintings, which didn't necessarily coincide with the poems, but she said, "I don't care. I don't care what somebody else gets from this painting. It's meant to be your own unique experience." And I feel the same way about these poems. Like, if you think, "I don't know what she means," I don't care. What does it mean to you? Like, what do you feel when you read it?
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to put words to with the glass bottom boat idea is that like the poems as I was reading them, they felt like a vehicle that took me to wherever it was that I needed to go.
Yeah, like a window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool.
Mm. Um, so I have had the immense pleasure of working with you. That's how we've gotten to know each other, coaching together, which has been incredibly special experience for me. Um, and when we first got together to do some coaching, my memory of it anyway, and you can tell me if your memory is different, but my memory was that y- you wanted to get into a more regular writing practice, and that was sort of the goal, so to speak, or a goal that was coming up. Um, and pretty quickly, as we were talking and exploring together, I got the sense that the writing was already there, the practice was there, the writing itself was there, and then it became about like what's getting in the way of sharing this writing and maybe publishing it in book form, which was like an idea you had expressed. And yeah, I'll ask you, what it is that similar to your experience? Did you experience it differently? And what do you feel was possibly getting in the way of sharing your writing at that time?
Yeah, that's how I remember it. Oh, I you said something to me early on when we started the conversation about sharing my work, and I should have looked it up. I think it was in an email, but it was something about, we're not taught that it's acceptable or safe to, of our own volition, put our voice and our presence into the world. And I took that as a gendered related message, but it certainly could be wider than that. But that just like struck the deepest chord for me because some of that's been religious training about what my role is on this planet. Um, some of that's been just my own family history of it's not a good idea to become that visible in your own unique way. It's not safe. Uh, so that there was a lot of that in the way, and then just good old fashioned terror,
Yeah.
like you know,
Yeah.
just I've always like I was so shy as a little girl. I was so unbearably shy. And I'm still that person. Like, and there's always that wrestle in all of us. I want to be seen, I want to be heard, and I don't want to make any waves, and I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. And there was just
Yeah.
a lot of fear around that. And, again, like I was saying earlier, that I we're all taught as kids, like, there's certain things that aren't safe to feel and aren't safe to show and aren't safe to present in the worlds that we grow up in, and there's an incredible boldness to me underneath that shyness that feels a trying to let out, and these poems felt really so honest that it felt a little bit like stripping
Yeah.
of them. So, there was that too.
Yeah. You know, when you said like there was good old fashioned terror, and I think something that's interesting to me to think about, and I invite whoever's listening to our conversation to think about this for themselves, is that what was presenting when you and I first spoke was not, I want to share these poems, but I feel terrified. It, it wasn't at all that. It was, I want to write more. And we kind of had to like
Right?
explore
I
and,
couldn't admit what it was I actually wanted. That's how scary it was.
yeah, to even uncover that there was fear there at all.
That's really funny.
So I
Totally
think that,
true.
yeah, I think that's interesting because I mean, I relate to that, and I would imagine a lot of people will relate to that. The fear isn't automatically obvious because it disguises itself as because it's afraid. The fear is afraid to be discovered.
Right? Right? Because then we're gonna have to deal with it. We might get
Ooh,
over it. I'll really be scared.
yeah.
Funny. Totally true.
A quick pause here because I want to invite you into something that I think could shift the way you feel about showing up. If you're a sensitive creative or entrepreneur, and the idea of being really seen and heard brings up fear, resistance, or that, oh no, not me feeling, you are in good company. My free visibility workshop, Let Yourself Be Seen, is all about making visibility feel safe to your nervous system and true to you. We'll explore how to work with fear as a doorway into more authentic self expression so you can share the work that matters most to you without pushing, pretending, or burning out. You can save your spot or catch the replay at annaholtzman.com/be seen. Okay, let's get back to the conversation. And so now we're talking about like what was getting in the way of sharing your writing. And then that also makes me curious about, well, and what was pulling you to share the writing? Because I mean, there's
Mhm.
not necessarily any law of the universe that says if you write poems, you've got to share them or, you know.
Right? Yeah. That's such a great question. Oh, okay. I'm gonna get poetic. I'm gonna read a paragraph
Oh, yeah.
from one of these poems. Like this is what it is to be alive.
Mm,
So in this is a poem called For the Disconsolate, which basically means for the depressed. I had a mentor say to me once, the opposite of depression is expression.
ooh.
And that's always stayed with me. And this
Mm.
poem that. This one says, O mountain in the soul, do not shrink against the steadfast arrogance of life. A tree not wary about where to stand plunges forth green shoots every time the sun warms her drenched desire. Rise up, let each yearning shake alive, pour your glory out. So, this is it's nothing more complicated than I really wanted to. Like, I and it wasn't the desire was so deep that it would not leave me alone. It's been with me for decades.
Yeah.
This desire to play with words and share them with the world.
This is okay. This is going to sound like so cheesy,
That
but I don't know why this is what came to me. But I was just thinking of that, that old saying, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody hears it, did it
yeah,
really fall? Is that how it goes?
something like that,
Something
yeah.
like that. And then when you said, like, this is what it is to be alive, I thought, yeah, I mean, like, witnessing one another and being witnessed by one another, hearing and being heard. I I I feel like that is what it is to be alive because just breathing alone doesn't quite do it. It's even if it's just
Mm.
having our breath be witnessed by another, that brings us into the flow of life. I don't know, that's just what's coming to
Yeah,
me as
I
I'm
love that. I love too that, each we all have deep, honest, heartfelt desires. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's what it is to be alive and to be human and to listen to those, to honor them, to nurture them, to trust them. And it seems like they always involve other people.
yeah.
Like you're saying. These are not I rarely, I mean, sometimes, people become hermits and monks, and I think that's really cool too. But so much of those yearnings that we have are about letting that river flow through us out into the world in some way.
Yeah, I just like, as I'm hearing your words and I'm resonating on, like, flowing with them, the the kind of understanding that's developed that's becoming clearer to me of what I think life is that it's not a data point, it's not like a pulse rate, it's a relationship. It's being in relationship with the flow of life, which I think even, a monk is in relationship with that,
Mhm. Yes, all the way. Yes. It's a living thing.
and it feels good.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
Um, so coming back to your book and your process with it, and we spoke about the fears that came up, in their initial form around sharing the writing. Um, when you first began the process, like maybe, I don't know if it started even with just making the decision to share the poems in some form. When you began that process of letting your writing be seen, what has that experience been like in your body? How do you work with fear when it comes up? And like, how has that whole thing been evolving?
Yeah, the first thing I wanna just say about all of it is that I haven't figured this all out. Like, like, it's it's still a very real living thing for me to be in relationship with that fear and to find a way to work together to still move forward. But, there are a couple things that occurred to me, and one is I actually stopped being alone in it. I asked for you to come into that circle with me for many months. I asked a publishing partner, a publisher, to come on board who had all kinds of expertise and knew exactly what step to take next and what step to take next, what step to take next, and could just give me the next one and hold my hand. So, and writing is a very solitary thing, right? And I way underestimated the value of bringing you and Ria, my publishing partner, into that circle with me. I don't think I wouldn't have done it without the two of you in that space. The other thing that occurs to me is like I let myself go at the pace my body needed to go. And it was way slower than I thought was right or good or proficient or like it was slow. Like I would get an email about the next thing and I wouldn't address it for
Oh.
7 to 10 days. Like I just let myself just move in slow motion. I get kind of like reading poetry, I guess. Like I let myself set the pace and my
Yeah.
Rio was so amazing with that. She's like, you are in charge of this process. It's totally yours. And there's no rush and there's nowhere to get to. Just be with it till you're ready to move. And so that's what I did. I just gave myself permission to not push hard.
Yeah.
And yet I think the presence of the both of you and of my writing mentor, uh, once I, what it really was at the beginning, it was a really honest confrontation with myself of, hey, I really do want to do this. Even if it's going to be hard, even if it's going to stress me out sometimes, even if my body is going to freak out 1,000 times, like, I really want to do this. So getting some clarity with that and letting that come to the surface and be brighter was kind of the beginning of that. And then allowing myself to be supported and helped, even by myself, which is my last thing I would offer, is that I remember I made a voice message to myself near the beginning of the process, just saying to myself, hey, Mer, I think this is so amazing that you've decided to do this. And I just want you to know I have your back. I am here all the way, even when it gets hard, even when you think this book is complete shit. I'm still here. I'm still going to walk you through it. I still have your back and I'm going to be here. We're going to just breathe together the whole way. And I listened to that a good handful of times along the way. So that last piece I would say is just self-compassion, being
Yeah.
willing to help with tenderness. It's the same thing these poems brought me to. Like, even though you're terrified, even though it's sometimes embarrassing how scared you are to put this little book of poems into the world, which very few people will read, considering how many people are on the planet. Like, to just back up and just be like, of course you're terrified. I've got you, and it's okay, and take your time and take a breath. You taught me so much, reminded me so much of how to hold myself in that way, to sink beneath all that old conditioning and old trauma and old forcing myself into the fire, just to come beneath it to, hey, you really want to do this? Let's do it. And let's do it in your own way, at your own pace, and with your own hands on your back.
Thank you for describing how it can feel at times embarrassing how
That
terrified.
is the word.
Yes, because I related to that instantly. It instantly brought me to, just like a whole bunch of very visceral moments in my own process with my own stuff of like just the embarrassment feeling like almost like I just like couldn't even handle sitting with myself. Um and so like I appreciate you sharing that because I think it offers like a normalizing framework for others who also experience a level of mind and body terror when it comes to this desire to share something of themselves. Um, and you mentioned like even if my body freaks out a million times, I mean, I have some insight into what you're talking about there. I wonder if there's anything you'd like to share with listeners who may potentially, have related experiences that maybe they haven't heard someone talk about experiencing this kind of thing.
Yeah, I I mean, I've struggled with chronic pain and other symptoms for a few decades. And they are, as is typical, highly connected to high levels of stress. Um, and so my body lovingly and quickly tells me when I am feeling like I'm not okay in the world, is how I would say that. And my journey with that is no different really at all than the journey of learning to put my voice into the world and to share. Because the only way there, the only real genuine way there that's sustainable is putting your arms around yourself. It's the only way. And it's the answer that doesn't need you to get anywhere different than where you are. In the process of becoming more visible in the world, in the process of healing, in the process of how a body feels from moment to moment to moment, that's the answer that includes everything, that allows everything that's happening to belong. And that's the paradox of it, right? We do that and everything softens. And at some point, let's go.
And at some point, let's go. I just, that sentence, it's very experiential for me. And it brings me into the question that I'm wanting to ask next, which is, you know, so there are certain overlaps in our experiences, and I've had my own journey with chronic migraine, and have also experienced the interplay between desire to share of myself with the world, fear of sharing with myself in the world, and how body sensations in my own body can respond to those things. And something that I've experienced at times and have heard, doing this work, I've heard lots of folks express echoes of this, that um, initially, when I started to notice that I would have like a flare up of some kind of physical reaction to the fear that would get stirred up when I would prepare to share something. Initially, I questioned whether I was harming myself by, for example, sharing my writing because of feeling pain in my body, and it seemed to be linked. I'm curious if that story ever came up for you, and whether or not it has. Like, what understanding do you have of that these days?
Yes, of course, that's been present for me. Even just on the level of, God, honey, this is so hard for you. Maybe we just shouldn't do it.
Right.
Absolutely. And yet, Anna, there's just some invisible but very real tipping point. It seems to me that we just reach in our own time and on our own schedule of I don't know if I can quite grasp the words, but this tipping point of I can actually feel and see in this moment that greater safety is on offer here by stepping in the direction of more visibility rather than less. And it's not a straight line and it's not painless, but the tipping point is like a peak. It's the top of a mountain. You have this awareness and this enough, you can see far enough out that you realize that, hey, in the long run, this is what love and aliveness and real living and thriving, this is the direction, is down this side of the mountain instead of back down the other.
I got this image in my mind as I was listening to you of, like, have you ever seen what is it? Those time lapse videos of a seed sprouting out, like seedling sprouting out of the seed. And
Uh-huh.
that's a type of a threshold, right? There's like this struggle period before the sprout breaches the seed container. And like, what if those thresholds of growth are inherently painful in some way? What if the pain is part of the growth? I'm thinking of
Mhm.
childbirth too, all these different types of thresholds of life.
Yeah, the contraction and the expansion, they're
Yeah.
always friends, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes I hate that truth.
Yeah, me too. I have to say, like,
And yet,
if there was a way to
yeah.
avoid the pain, I would be hitting that button all day.
Oh, yes.
And sometimes I'm trying to do it by scrolling my phone or whatever it is.
Yes, right. Right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not like that contraction isn't there for a reason. You're the compassion has to include that, right? It has to include all the reasons,
Mm.
many of which are way beyond our personal scope. I mean, there are many systemic reasons for why we experience birthing ourselves in this way. And there's just spiritual physics involved too, right? Which you're
Yeah.
describing well.
Spiritual physics. I love that. Yeah. Um, okay. I'm looking at our time and wow, I could just be in this all day. Um,
Yeah, no, right?
it
Super fun.
is. It is. Um, we are coming to that time where I'm gonna shift us into the final three questions or a version of them that I ask every guest that I've had here on this podcast.
Awesome.
And the first of those is, if there is a soapbox message that you're putting out there through your writing, through your being at this stage of life, what would you say a version of that message is?
Mm. The first thing I wanna say is kind of funny, like, I'm not a fan of soapboxes in my 50s at all.
I love that.
If I'm really honest, like I said, I like to be. Of course I have one, everyone does. And if I were to try to let that be more visible, it would be something like, a lot of what I've already expressed, that everything in your current moment of experience belongs. That you're allowed to inhabit every experience you're having. And that deep within it and under it and beyond it, there is something in us that is trustworthy, that we can rely on, that we can rest in. And it's got us in a way that I do not understand. But I but touching that place in us. This book is called For the Wounded, but it's about grasping and touching and sensing and feeling and living with the part of us that isn't. And that part is, there really aren't any words for it, and I don't fully understand it, but that's my soapbox. It's there. It's there even when you can't see it or feel it. And it's worth tinkering around inside yourself to see if you can't bump up against it.
What you just said it just really brought me into just a deeper level of my own feeling or understanding of, I don't know, what this this whole journey, whatever this is, this spiritual life journey that we're on is for me like it's a relationship, and it's a relationship between the part that's wounded and the part that's not, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
For the listener who is listening to our conversation right now, for the listener who may be on the precipice of a threshold between some form of what you described earlier, between depression and expression, or some form of that, whatever it is for them, they're listening to your words and maybe catching some sparks of inspiration to take that next step, to let's go, let's move forth anyway, even though it's messy and can feel scary and might feel painful at times, but let's move into expression. But they are also feeling perhaps confused, overwhelmed, not knowing where to start, not sure if it really is worth it. What words of encouragement would you have to that person in that moment?
Hmm. Well, me too is the first thing I feel like. And how amazing. What an amazing place to be. And what if there isn't anything actually wrong in this moment where you are in the midst of everything you're experiencing around it? And like what if you're going over the tip of that mountain regardless? Like there's nothing you can do to even stop it. What if you can trust the desire to create and express that deeply? That it's way bigger than you. And yeah, that's the heart of it. I mean, I could say a lot of other things like let yourself be held and find ways to put your arms around yourself and go at your own pace. And those are all great things too. But I think more than anything, like just yay and how cool that you're there and
I,
something big at you.
I feel like what you just demonstrated or moved through is an iteration of that. Like you started off by saying, yeah, me too. Like I too basically am the wounded. And also, I'm looking to see my notes on what you said next, but and also this is the part that's holding you, that's holding us. Both are here and both are in relationship with each other.
Yeah.
And actually, I know I said we were in the final three questions, but if we could take a little meander for just a few minutes before getting to the final question. Um, when you said let yourself be held, and you were talking earlier about how working with a coach, working with a publisher, those were integral parts of the process of letting your work be witnessed. I remember that the the journey to inviting a publisher into the process that was not an easy step to take, actually. Um, there were hesitations and fears that came up around that part about around letting in a collaborator, a support person. Um, I wonder if there's any, like, memories of that come up for you that might be helpful to share with listeners, because I think this is something that a lot of us hesitate around for, a whole wide variety of different reasons.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason that felt big was just that I knew it was gonna be real at that point. Like, I knew, you know, it's like the fact that it was actually going to happen was good news that seemed like bad news for
Oh,
a little
yeah.
while. Like, okay, I'm actually gonna have to show up for my body, for my words, for this goal, for this deep desire. I'm actually gonna have to stay with it and be with it through all of its mess and beauty. So just that alone was terrifying. And the other piece of it for me was you know, I didn't know exactly what that experience would be like. I didn't know if I'd have to give up some control. I didn't know if I'd be allowed my own pace without having to really stake my claim in that
True.
or have to set boundaries or speak up for myself. And I mean, Rio was phenomenal in that department. Phenomenal. I mean, if you're looking for a co-publisher, Maria Iliff would. Yeah. So it all worked out, but there's an unknown to that. There is a bit of a I'm stepping into a space where I don't know how it's gonna go. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to hold my own. Uh, and again, I gotta hold myself here. That's why it always comes back to our own arms around our own self, is that if I, I gotta trust myself enough that whatever's happening, I can show up for myself and I can address what needs addressing and I can say what I need, whatever it is. And that was, that's a curve I'm still on in all relationship. I'm still learning as many of us are. So yeah, it was mostly about those things.
I'm so glad we went there, because I just got so much clarity from listening to you. You just articulated something that, the way I heard it anyway, really named for me a pattern that I experience in my own life, which is that every time I'm at a threshold of committing to something that I want, but I'm afraid of committing to it because I'm not sure if I'll be able to consistently show up for myself. And I'm not sure if committing to something means that I'm going to lose control. And the funny
Yep.
thing is, those two things are linked, because if I consistently show up for myself, I can't lose control because I'm there checking in with myself, holding myself.
Yeah,
Um,
you can't
yeah.
lose control over the things that actually scare you.
Yes. It's like
Yeah.
I'm afraid to stay present, but it's actually staying present that makes it safe, because I I'm not losing control if
Oh,
I'm present.
that's so funny and so true. You're absolutely right. It's problems, it's just one, and it's not really them if you're game to just keep coming to presence with
Yeah. Thank you so much for this exploration. It Like every conversation we've had with one another, it certainly expands my world and understanding. And I hope it has done that for the listener too. Finally, where can listeners find you? Especially, where can they find and get a hold of the book, your book?
Oh, thank you, Anna. This has been a total treat to hang out with you and explore these things. There's a handful of places. My website is mermonson.com. And you can find how to get the book there. You can find other things I've written, other published poems and essays. You can reach out to me on there. And the book is on Amazon UK and Amazon US, and also Barnes and Noble. And then I also have a Substack account where you can sign up to get a small poem or a few thoughts once or twice a month from me, and that's just Mer Monson on Substack.
Thank you, Mer. I'm going to put those links in the show notes so people can find them easily. But if you are listening to this and you just want to search immediately, Mer Monson is spelled MERMONSON. Mer, thank you. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Anne. I love you to pieces.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing, and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.